Pop art was an art movement that looked at popular culture as its subject matter. It began in the 1950s in London. It started as a reaction to the boom of American consumerism that British artists had observed. It then became popular in the United States and grew from there and lasted until the 1970s. Pop art took its subject matter from popular culture. They looked at advertisements, everyday objects, and celebrities for inspiration. Pop art challenged the idea of lowbrow and highbrow art. Artists found ways to bridge these mass produced and everyday subjects with fine art mediums and styles. In pop art's beginnings, we see a critical look at American culture through the eyes of British artists. With Britain trying to rebuild after World War II, the new American lifestyle of leisure and mass consumption didn't come across as well. Looking at this piece by Richard Hamilton, we can see the beginnings of pop art through his satirical work. He created this collage of images that he cut from American magazines. By doing this, he was critiquing the American consumer culture and the many advertisements and disposable objects that were common at the time. With the word pop in the piece, we also see where the name for pop art began. Pop art really took on in America. There was an influx of images and advertisements everywhere you looked, from billboards to television. Roy Lichtenstein took his subject matter from comics and advertisements at the time. His works used Ben-Day dots to create the similar look to comic book illustrations. He even would add speech bubbles to add to this effect. We can see that here in this work. He chose a subject that was seen as being a lower form of art at the time and depicted it as fine art. This gives us an example of how artists then were challenging the idea of highbrow art. Another notable pop artist is Claes Oldenburg, who created many large sculptures of everyday objects. This work shown is an example of his humorous take on art and culture then. Choosing such a simple, everyday object like this as his subject for a sculpture outside of a museum gives us another look at how artists were challenging what fine art was. Perhaps the most well-known of the pop artists is Andy Warhol. He embraced the idea of fame, money, and celebrity throughout his life and artworks. He began his career as a commercial artist, and many of his works look at the effects of mass marketing at the time. He created many prints of common brand objects like Campbell's Soup and Kellogg's, as we can see in this photo. He also used celebrities as subjects, most notably Marilyn Monroe. In this piece, he created repeated screen prints of Marilyn that vary throughout. He puts Marilyn in the place of a religious icon, and it shows us how Americans celebrated and worshiped celebrities in a similar way. Pop art was a big turning point and challenged the idea of what fine art was. By choosing these everyday objects and subjects of pop culture, artists were able to examine the mass-produced and mass-marketed culture of America at the time. We still see many artists today examining the world in similar ways through their art.